Uh-oh. Okay,
Well,
let's get rolling.
I just
The
heard this.
Park Committee will
so
come to order. We'll
I'll go
note
through it.
Alderman Nicholson present, Alderman Burnett, Alderman Weary, Alderman Johnson is excused, and President Stoyer is sitting in. Can I
wonder
have
if I-
approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Well,
Yep.
could I'd like to,
Motion second.
let's say move item
James,
3
all in
up
favor?
to number 1.
No changes. I'm sorry,
Second.
what was that, Alderman Story?
I'd like to put item 3 up to
All right.
item 1.
Second.
Can you explain
Motion by
why?
Stoyer, second by Burnett to move 3 to 1. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Motion by Nicholson, seconded by Stoyer to approve the minutes. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Regular business. Number 3, consideration with possible action on the request by Alderman Stoyer to review the Park Department facility use policy. Alderman Stoyer.
All right, well, I was talking to Director Ditchite about this, and he said the 2 citizens that were here to talk about it were in the hallway while they were at the previous meeting. You were talking to them, so I'll listen to what you have to say about that.
Yeah, so ultimately, the concern came from the individual who was fundraising for the pickleball project, and he had some questions as it related to fundraising and what our policy would allow and wouldn't allow. So basically, we talked through his concerns. He is fine with the policy remaining as is, as far as the policy that was attached to the agenda. And I guess I would recommend at this time we just receive and place it on file.
We should receive and place on file.
I just have one point. So Director Ditchite, I guess in the sense, I mean, one of the issues that was brought up was the wording in it. And what was the talk on that, as far as the wording of the facilities part of that?
Well, the policy was actually geared towards youth-sanctioned groups. And so he was wondering how that would affect his group, which is a pickleball group that is non-sanctioned. So in general, there is no current policy that's similar for non-sanctioned groups. So, you know, he's okay with leaving the policy for sanctioned groups as it is, and he is not concerned moving forward with kind of how he would continue with fundraising efforts. So
I guess
he's
the
fine
qu-
with everything as
Right,
is.
I guess the question I had is because they talk about advertising in parks and such, and I think one of the things that have been brought up in the past was that for groups that are out there that raise money, or donors, you know, what is it in for them? Let's say if there's a project where you have private money and public monies coming together, a lot of times the private entity is asked to raise 10% possibly, and so that you don't have to go to bonding in order to get the rest of the project done. So if somebody comes forward and raises a nice chunk of money, maybe all of it, as far as how they are allowed to show that, whether it's advertising or else. I guess that.
Whenever we allow fundraising to happen, we always allow a donor recognition board. Whether that's a brass plaque or an engraved sign, it's really up to the individual fundraising to work with us on what the materials are, what it's going to look like, how big it is. So we'll work with him to set that limits. But yeah, we would recognize all donors that donate over a certain dollar amount, and that's standard for all of our donor projects. We do not allow advertising in the parks and selling advertising rights, except with very limited options, which are spelled out in that user group policy. So, you know, we wouldn't sell naming rights, or I'm sorry, we would not sell advertising rights as a fundraising tool for them. That's not something that we've done in the past, and it's something that I would not encourage, and he's okay with that.
All right, well, I have no more questions. So,
Alderman Nicholson, you had a motion to receive and place on file?
Yes.
Or was there a second for that?
Second.
Second by Alderman Burnett. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. That'll be easy to edit.
We'll make it up, yes.
Number 1, consideration with possible action on the request by the Bear Creek Preservation Foundation to install a bike skills course at Triangle Hill in the Bear Creek Greenway.
Yeah, so I included a map in the agenda packet which shows what that skills course would look like after it's installed or when it gets installed. So over the years, we have teamed up with the Bear Creek Preservation Foundation to improve and maintain bike trails throughout the Greenway. You know, that has included trail relocation, trail mapping, trail maintenance, and then trail signage. So we already have a very nice mountain biking trail system, and a lot of people are really starting to learn about it and utilizing it more and more each year. And there is a strong desire by the mountain bike group to continue improving the Greenway for mountain biking. So as part of this, the Bear Creek Preservation Foundation brought this proposal forward, and what they're proposing is to donate and install a bike skills course at Triangle Hill. So recently, these courses have been popping up all over the country. They're very popular. The proposed plan would use a mixture of natural features and prefabricated structures or ramps to basically teach kids and people of all ages basically bike skills. So it teaches them balance, it teaches them how to maneuver through different obstacles. And it helps them to improve their bike skills and their abilities as they grow in the sport. So this course, if it were installed, it would be installed in the overflow parking area just southwest of the existing asphalt parking lot. The track would be located around the perimeter of the open space. That location was selected so that we can preserve the open space for overflow parking and other special use activities. In addition, that location has adequate parking, so if somebody wants to drive to their skills course, they could park at Triangle Hill and then bike down to the course fairly easily. Plus, the track is located and it would be connected to the existing mountain bike course, which goes throughout the entire Greenway. So if this is approved, the foundation would fund this 100%. There would be no cost to the city, but the city would take on ownership and maintenance of it after it's donated. It would be constructed in phasing as the budget allows, so they would anticipate starting work in 2020 and completing it in 2023. They would work with a company that does this type of work and have installed courses similar throughout the state to design it safely. And all of the ramps would be prefabricated ramps that would be constructed off-site and brought to the site and designed and engineered to certain specifications. So in general, the Parks Department is very supportive of this. We've actually been looking at trying to incorporate this somewhere within the Greenway because we feel it's would be very well used. So we're happy the Bear Creek Preservation Foundation stepped forward with this proposal, and especially at no cost to the city.
That's the best part.
So, yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I know we're not paying for anything of this, but what was the cost?
They haven't given
don't have
an
one?
estimated cost
Just
at this
okay.
point.
That's fine.
Any other questions?
How much staff time yearly will be required to maintain it?
Well, we'll have to do regular inspections out there. My guess would be weekly inspections, making sure that the ramps, are in good condition. A lot of the obstacles you see are going to be natural obstacles, so they're going to be basically bermed hills. There's one where it's kind of a turn berm built into the hillside. And then I think that there's only, I believe, one prefabricated ramp or one or minimal number of prefabricated ramps that would take some inspection and some routine maintenance. But I would say very little staff time would be involved.
Who to approve?
Second.
Motion by Alderman Burnett, second by Alderman Nicholson. Under discussion, how long of a course is that?
It's fairly small. I mean, it's not a large course because, the key is put a lot of obstacles in there of very different, for different age groups.
Quarter mile?
It's probably a quarter mile at the most.
It says half a mile.
Oh, does it? I'm sorry.
Oh, does it?
I wasn't aware of that.
That's in the small print. Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 2, consideration with possible action on the approval of the rental rates for the new banquet hall in the 4K edition of the Nature Center.
So I submitted a form for you, which gives the rates. So as you recall, we built the new 4K edition at the Nature Center at the Wildlife Sanctuary. The upper level is a large banquet hall with a secondary room off to the side that we can rent. This gives a summary of what the fees would be. For the side room, it would be $300 per day. For the grand room with the side room, we would have 3 different rates, depending on if it's, 4 different rates depending on the day of the week. So the rates would range Monday through Thursday, $900 per day. For Sunday, it would be $1,200 per day. For Friday, it'd be $1,300 per day, and Saturday would be $1,600 per day. So the days, obviously the days when it would be rented the most have the highest fee. We have researched other similar spaces throughout the community and the state, and this is very competitive with other similar type venues.
Director, is there any reason it's 11 and not midnight? Is that just the typical time people use?
Well, it is at the sanctuary, so we want to, be a little respectful to the animals that are out there. We still have them on display because, if there's a wedding reception, there's going to be music at the wedding reception, so we don't want it going too late. But 11 o'clock is a pretty standard time. It's usually 11 or 12. And really kind of what we see is this first year will be a trial year. We'll test out the waters if we want to amend this next year based on what we're seeing with revenues out there and amount of usage. The other thing is a lot of groups or a lot of similar type facilities charge seasonally. So on the prime seasons, they charge more, and in the off seasons, they charge less. Like I said, we're going to test the waters for a year. My guess is we'll come back next year and revise the rates accordingly.
Alder Steuer?
Thank you, Chair. Dan, I was just going to ask, I know we haven't collected anything yet, but is there any kind of an idea of what we might bring in with something like this over a year period? Is there some thought about that?
Yeah, right now in our 2020 budget, we allocated $40,000 in revenue for the year.
And that money would go back
that money would go back
to?
Well, it goes to the sanctuary or the city as a whole. It's just included as a revenue source for the Parks Department.
Any other questions?
That's all.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Burnett, second by Alder Nicholson. Discussion, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Informational, review the proposed 2020 Parks, Rec, and Forestry Department budget. I appreciate putting this on there, Director Ditch. I know it's going to go to Finance Committee, but it's nice as a committee that we get to kind of get a peek at what it means for our part.
Yeah, and there's just a few things that I wanted to highlight because it's kind of difficult to look at the budgets and kind of pick some of this out. So I just wanted to highlight a few changes to our proposed budget in 2020 from the 2019 budget. So I'm not going to focus on every single line item. I know we've done that in the past and it's been fairly cumbersome. And I'm sure those line items we can go one by one at the Finance Committee or at the City Council. Really what I'm trying to do is just give you the kind of the overview of kind of the bigger ticket items that we just need. I just want the committee to be informed of. So one is programming. So in general, most of our programs remain the same, unaffected, but we did modify the playground program slightly in our 2020 budget. So in 2019, there were 36 summer park program locations scattered throughout the city. And we do keep track of the number of children coming to the program on a daily basis and total it up for the entire season. So the numbers range from the various park sites. So on the low end, we had 257 participants for the entire season, which I think is 46 days, if my memory is correct. I'd have to double check that. And then it goes up to 4,201 participants. So as you can see, there's quite a range where there's some parks where we just don't have a lot of participation and others where we get a lot of people. So over the past number of years, we've been monitoring kind of the lowest participating parks to see if we should be right-sizing the playground program. So in our 2020 budget, what we propose to do is to eliminate 4 park program site locations in the budget. So that comes down to about $7,500 approximately per park. is what it costs the taxpayers to run these programs. So the four that were selected in our budget would be Lombardi, Whitney, Farland, and Preble. So all of these sites, with the exception of Whitney Park, did have very low numbers consistently year after year over the last 3 to 5 years. Lombardi last year was the one that had only 257 participants, and we ended up closing that program down after 3 weeks because of lack of children coming to the program. So that one only ran 3 weeks in 2019. And part of that was because there was construction going on at the school, which kind of limited access. But also, once we started up at Lombardi, the numbers were very low. And so we didn't run the program. There's also other reasons, but consistently throughout the years, that has been one park with very low numbers. Preble Park, those numbers have averaged from 7 to 10 participants per day, which is one of our lowest parks. And Farland consistently goes down and down each year. So in 2015, Farland had 29 participants per day, and it's gone down. And in 2019, there were only 10 participants per day on average. And these are all average numbers based on the entire year, dividing it out by the number of days that we operate. And keep in mind that even with these number of participants, a large number of these children would come for the free lunch program, and they wouldn't stay the entire time. This is just whoever comes, even if they're there for 10, 15 minutes, they're counted as a participant. So these numbers weren't necessarily all people coming and utilizing the park. It was coming for the free lunch, and it wasn't every.
Sorry to interrupt you, but just to clarify that, because that's a big point, is that number of 10 kids per day, for instance, for Farland, it's more like maybe 1 or 2 kids that actually are in the playground program. The 10 come for lunch, maybe 1 or 2 stay in the afternoon to kind of play around for a while, and then so they count those in their numbers. But this is not even, this is the fair thing to say would be maybe 1 to 2 kids per day at some of those sites that we're talking about.
And like I said, each park site costs the taxpayers about $7,500 per site. Now, Whitney Park was selected. Their numbers are a little bit better than the other 3 parks, but Whitney was selected because that park is actually turning into a special use park. So we now have a dog park in Whitney Park, which causes some liability concerns with running a parkie program with a dog's park literally right next to the shelter. In addition, there's music in the park once a week, and that limits what the kids or the children can do on that day, because they can't play basketball because it interrupts the concerts. So it kind of limits the activities that our parkies do with the children that come to the program. In addition, at Whitney Park, this past year in particular, we did have a number of instances with just conflicts between the homeless population who tend to gravitate towards that park, and conflicts with the parking program. So this past year in particular, we had more instances of that occurring than other years. But the main reason for Whitney Park is just it's turning into a special use park where there's more and more structured activities, and it's less and less a neighborhood park, which is where these parking programs typically gravitate towards. So that's why Whitney Park was selected. The other thing that we're proposing to do is to eliminate the special population summer program. And what that is that's run out of the Colburn Lower Shelter. And that is a program for children with special needs from ages 6 to 18. Children enrolled in the program in the past have included children who are cognitively disabled, autistic, have Down syndrome, or maybe cerebral palsy. So that's the type of individual that would be enrolled in that program. The program runs Monday through Friday from 11:30 to 4:30, and again, it's at Colburn Park. We do charge a fee for that one, which is different than the other parking programs, and it costs $55 per child to enroll in the program. That cost really just covers field trips and activities outside of the park where they go to different places, and there's different fees associated with that. So that $55 per person does not cover the cost of hiring staff to run the program. We are required to have a minimum of 2 staff members at that program, and it costs the city about close to $16,000 in loss of revenue or in expenses to run that program. Like I said, that $16,000 does not include the $55 because that's all spent on activities. So the cost of just hiring the staff is $15,928. Over the last 5 years, this program has enrolled anywhere from 7 to 12 children in the program. And in 2019, 9 children were enrolled, and that consisted of 4 families. So typically, you'll see maybe 4 to 6 families that enroll in this program, and there's usually 2 families in particular that have multiple children enrolled. So like I said, the cost to the city was $15,928, and last year there were 4 families that were enrolled in the program. So that was eliminated in the 2020 budget. And if you want to add that back into the budget, those would be the dollars associated with that. And then the last thing we did with the playground program is we started a summer camp program at the Wildlife Sanctuary. And I'll probably have James kind of talk about that one a little bit more because he kind of put that program together.
So, in lieu of kind of, taking some opportunities away on one side, we thought, let's add some other opportunities on the other side of it here. So we actually created a Park and Rec Summer Camp proposed program. Right now it's proposed for the Wildlife Sanctuary because we got a beautiful new building to house it in. And also, we're still exploring other opportunities. We're working with the schools. They don't have all their facilities set until 2020, but we're still looking at a couple other sites. But right now, it looks like we're looking at Wildlife Sanctuary probably as that proposed site. So it'll be a 10-week program throughout the summer, just like the playground program is currently, but the hours will be a little different. It'll be 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. It'll be 3 to 4 staff, depending on the number of kids enrolled, and we go about 8 kids per staff. So we wouldn't enroll more than 32 kids per se. It'd be pretty focused on those kids. It would also be a revenue-producing program. So we charge somewhere between $85 and $100 per week per kid or per youth, depending on final field trips and costs associated with. Right now, we're trying to coordinate and get all those finalized for the year. It'd be a staffed summer camp, like I said, run through Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Participants would need to register and pay weekly, or they could register for the entire summer and maybe get a slight discount. Lunch will be provided daily for them also with that cost. The camp will focus on youth going into grades like 4 through 7. So we're really hitting an age group, maybe the middle school and those age groups that maybe sometimes are tough, and we're going to be doing some really interesting and kind of, I would say, higher level programming, like STEAM programming, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. It'll probably be nature-based, especially if it's the Wildlife Sanctuary, just because of the facility you're at. But we'll be doing some other things too, hands-on activities, more camp and team building projects, outdoor sports, orienteering, geocaching, those kind of things, but also exploring animals, plants, and everything the great outdoors has to offer. So the budget for this program is $12,287. That's with labor and then expenses, and the revenue is $16,200. So that's what's proposed for our summer camp. It's kind of a new offering, once again, kind of like Dan said about the Wildlife Sanctuary building. I mean, this will be our year to kind of try this out, explore what works, what doesn't work, how we can evolve it and modify it accordingly, and then grow it from there. So there'll be kind of one site right now, but I mean, our hopes are if it goes really well, maybe we got another site on the west side next year, 2021. So it's something that we're going to try out, similar to, I would say, what you see at some other municipalities. I know Alloway does something very similar to this. The YMCA's do, some of those entities, and we're just trying it out to see how it would work for us.
Yeah, and then I do want to also I guess we can talk about questions about the playground program if you have them right now.
Yeah, I know
Because
Brad.
I also want to touch bases on different staffing changes that we have proposed.
Lombardi Park, where's that located?
Which one?
Lombardi?
Lombardi, that'd be Lombardi Middle School.
All right, so
This
it's
is
my
where that would
area.
be in your
Now-
district.
Now, how many kids go to that? Because I do have some constituents who send their kids there. I want to make sure.
Sure.
So just for clarity, like I said, it used to be at King Elementary, that was where it was housed majority of the time. Now, with Green Bay Summer Schools and wraparounds in the summer, they actually house 3 different schools, summer school at King now. So that was the reason we had to move to Lombardi.
Sure.
So there's over 300 kids that are actually at King School now as of last year. And then with construction also there too, there was a lot of concern about the playground program, so we moved to Lombardi. And I can attest, like, the numbers, I know Dan said, they're 257. That's through the first, 3 weeks of the program in 2019. But on that third week, we saw maybe 1 person a day at that site. So they significantly dropped.
257 over 21 days is like 10, 11 kids.
But, yes, that's
Right.
true to a certain extent. But once
Right,
again,
but
that's
what I'm saying is
lunches.
that's how you got to the 257.
Correct,
right? That-
yes.
That's for,
Yep.
the reasoning is perfectly valid, so I don't question that.
And to
Thank
give you some context, in 2018, the total number was 551 children.
Sure. Now, will you, Parks Department, will you notify the schools that, because I would assume, how do you notify the public that there's not a parking program?
Well, that's kind of what we're talking about here, is kind of the first step of what was proposed in the budget. We will see what happens at the budget, if that passes through the general budget at the council. And if so, then we'll put together some sort of a
Communication
community
with the public.
outreach
That's fine.
and figure out a way to do it. Kind of depends, we may go through the neighborhood associations, but it's dependent on per site and what the best option is for that site.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the parking program?
No, you need a motion?
Just have one quick question, sorry. Over time, though, you look at these things that you're talking about, these programs, revenues that are brought in, and then costs for staff to be out there and that type of thing. Is there some kind of a final number that will add and subtract accordingly, and then come up with a number that, for potential revenues or such?
Well, the programs that we just outlined are programs that really don't bring in revenue,
Okay.
other than the one that.
I was talking about the camp and things
Yeah, the
like
new
that.
camp will bring in revenue, so that's something we can provide you those numbers.
That'd be nice to have that number.
Like as it,
Well, the final number, how much is brought in.
oh, yeah.
At the end, like a
versus what-
recap,
Yeah, recap, and as
Yeah.
far as how
we
much
can definitely do that.
city staff goes anywhere.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Motion?
I think we have a little bit more of the budget to go through, right? Just some
Yeah.
staffing changes and then.
I just wanted to review a few staffing changes also, so that you're aware of what's happening. The biggest change is going to be out at the wildlife sanctuary. So what we did is we did eliminate the wildlife sanctuary project manager position from the table of organization. That's due to the retirement of Mike Reed, who had that position. And then in next year's budget, in the 2020 budget, we would reinstate the wildlife sanctuary superintendent position. So we're hoping to actually fill that position as early in the year as possible, as close to January 1st as we can. So ideally, we would start advertising this in early November if the budget gets approved with that position in it. The other thing that we're looking at doing is hiring a third full-time animal care position. So right now, we do have 2 animal care positions out at the sanctuary. One is a senior animal keeper, and then the other one's more of a junior position. So the third position we're creating is a junior position. So the reason we're doing it, there's several reasons. So one is every year we're seeing more and more injured animals coming in, and we really need the additional assistance with staff to care for those animals. That's part of it. The other thing is in the summer, we're in operation 7 days a week, and we operate from 8 to 7:30 in the evening, I believe. And with 2 staff members, we cannot fully staff the animal care area with permanent staff members. So in the summertime, throughout history, we've been relying on either part-time staff or volunteers to actually run the animal care program in the hours when we don't have a full-time staff member there. That's could set the city up for some liability concerns. So by having this third full-time position, we're able to fill those hours much better than we can with two positions. So that's the reasoning behind adding it. As far as how that impacts the budget, really, right now there's really a zero impact. And the reason I say that is because the Friends of the Wildlife Sanctuary have made a motion at their committee to fund this position, 40,000 of it on a yearly basis from here on out. So they recently received $40,000 a year through an endowment fund. They are putting that entire endowment fund towards this position on a yearly basis if this gets approved. The other thing we were able to do is we eliminated one part-time staff by creating this full-time position, and that saved about $7,500 per year. And then to balance the budget, what I proposed in my budget was to offset hiring the position 4 months. So if the position is removed from the budget, there would be no savings because we would have to add the part-time staff member back in at $7,500, and then that $40,000 was a commitment from the Friends specifically for this position. So right now, I'm just letting you know that that's how it was funded in the budget. If it passes, there would be no impact or no increase to the budget, but in the 2020 budget. And if it doesn't pass, there really is no savings because of how the funding.
Alderman Burnett had a question.
Dan, in the
Yes.
past, when we had a service agreement with the United Tribe, they contributed 40,000 to the Wildlife Sanctuary.
Mhm.
Do they do that anymore?
They still contribute some, yeah.
Okay, is it
it's-
40,000?
I don't remember the dollar amount offhand, but they still contribute some.
So
I can look into that. and
ballpark
get you
20,000,
that.
okay, just let me know.
I can't give
Just
you a
send me that.
ballpark
That's
right
fine,
now.
just
I'll
send
look
me
into
that.
it.
Just
Give me a
curious.
call.
I could do that too.
Any other questions
Yep.
on the wildlife?
Need a motion?
I guess the other thing is,
Oh.
in regards to the recreation superintendent position, which would be James's position. What we're proposing to do is restructure the organization to create an assistant director position, and his position would bump up to that level. There would be no cost change to do that, although it bumps up 2 levels. He would be starting at level 4, which is in the mid-range of the new position. But last year, if you recall, we did provide a stipend to James's position, or the recreation superintendent position, to fill some of the duties with the 4K program, to be the administrator of that program. So in the assistant director position, there would be no stipend anymore, so it's basically a wash in the budget by making this change. And he would still maintain the duties of the 4K administration, but he would also do other things. So really what we're going to create that position, or turn it into, which he's already somewhat evolved into that, it's just formalizing it, is instead of dealing with the programming just with the recreation division, he's now would be dealing with the programming for the entire Parks Department. And it's programming and outreach and marketing is what that position will turn into as the assistant director position. So he'll be working with the Wildlife Sanctuary on their programming and marketing and outreach. He'll be working with Bay Beach on helping them out with that. And it's now looking at the division as a whole instead of just the recreation division. So that's what that position has started to evolve into. We anticipate that even gets expanded even further if this gets approved. But I just want to let you know that there's no cost to the budget because the stipend would be eliminated.
Any questions on that?
So that's really all that I had that I really wanted to review with you.
Any other?
Place on file.
Motion to receive and
Second.
place on file. Nicholson, Burnett, discussion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Director's report.
Yeah, I really don't have too much to add to that. Really, the big thing is the pruning ban for oaks has been lifted from October 15th through March 15th. So now people can prune oak trees. There is a ban in the spring, summer, and fall with pruning because it spreads disease through oak wilt. That's really the biggest thing that I really just wanted to point out.
Motion to receive and place on file.
Second.
Receive and place in file. Motion and a second, Nicholson and Burnett. Discussion, those in favor? Opposed, motion carried.
Move to adjourn.
Motion for
Second.
Burnett, second, Stoyer, in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Move.
Guys. Gonna go to the finance personnel next week.